Families of victims of former President Rodrigo Duterte's drug war scores a legal victory as the International Criminal Court rejects FPRRD's appeal for his interim release. Good morning, I'm Atty. Karen Jimeno, and this is At the Forefront. The National Union of People's Lawyers welcomes the ICC decision to reject the appeal of former President Rodrigo Duterte for his interim release. The group, which represents families of drug war victims, believes this is one less hurdle in the proceedings at the ICC. Meanwhile, the ICI has recommended the filing of charges against a senator and other personalities in relation to the flood control scandal. But groups continue to watch closely if this will lead to true accountability. To talk about the ICC case and other issues, we'll be speaking with NUPL President Atty. Neri Colmenares, who is also celebrating his birthday today. Happy birthday, Atty. Neri, and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Atty. Karen. Thank you for the greetings and advance happy birthday greetings din sa'yo.
Yes, pareho tayong Sagittarius,
yes,
mga December babies.
Yes,
so, Atty. Neri, let's start with your recent statements on the ICC's rejection of the interim release of former President Rodrigo Duterte. You said the focus now shifts to two pending issues: the court's jurisdiction due to the Philippines and Philippines withdrawal from the Rome Statute,
yes,
and FPRRD's fitness to stand trial.
Yes. Well, actually, the first issue should be the confirmation of charges because we're not yet in the trial stage. It's just to confirm the charges, which is a little distinct from the way we do it here.
Yes, sa atin kasi bago pa ma-even makulong, meron ka munang...
the fiscal files the information,
exactly,
right? And then the trial ensues. Dun sa kanila, the prosecutor muna has to have the confirmation of charges. So we're asking for that because President Duterte asked for the postponement of the September 23 confirmation of charges. So we're asking the ICC actually, please, because when they suspended the confirmation of charges, they did not put a date. They could have said, okay, we'll postpone September 23, we'll have it November or December. So because we cannot go to trial unless the charges are confirmed. So yeah, well, I guess with that issue, the jurisdiction has actually been resolved by the pretrial chamber. And they said that the ICC has jurisdiction because, of course, of Article 127. So I guess the other issue raised, ang daming motions kasi ni President Duterte, is really delays the trial so much. Another motion, of course, not only in the interim release, but also now on the, of course, the qualification of the doctors and so on, but also the issue of unfit for trial. President Duterte's medical condition as unfit for trial.
But Atty. Neri, the fact that FPRRD is being detained, and sa atin nga ibang-iba to kasi pag dinetain na nang wala kang bail, that means it's a non-bailable offense and meron nang na-file na kaso. But here, as you said, di ba, wala pa nga yung confirmation hearing, which means wala pa talagang case na file against FPRRD. But he is being detained, and his condition is also like being in prison.
Yes.
Kaya, don't you think that's already like a punishment itself?
Well, actually, no. The conditions there and the rules is the first, the issuance of a warrant of arrest. Before the issue of warrant of arrest, the ICC has to look at Article 58, that it is necessary to bring the accused to trial and that the accused will not abscond or flee. Second, of course, is that the accused will not interfere with the proceedings, with the investigation. That's why a warrant of arrest will be issued. And third, if the accused will continue committing the crimes, then a warrant of arrest is granted. Now, if you want a release from the warrant of arrest, you need to disprove the three, that I will appear on trial, I will not escape, I will not interfere with the proceedings or the investigation, threaten witnesses, their lawyers, and third, I will not commit the crimes anymore. So that's not actually an issue of punishment, but a warrant has been issued against you. Now you have to prove to the court, and maganda nga sa kanila, there is such an option to ask for interim release. You
But
have
they
to
rarely grant that, no? Yung interim release,
They-
historically, for
Yeah,
the
well,
ICC.
Well, they grant it in some times, at some point, but normally those who are charged kasi in the ICC are very heinous crimes. You killed thousands and thousands, whether you're in Africa or in Asia. So it's not easy to grant interim release to a person who showed, well, more or less, that he or she is capable of committing the offenses, in interfering with the evidence, and of course, has the resources to flee or abscond. So,
But do you believe that FPRD will abscond? And also given his age,
Yes.
at 80, like,
yes, that was actually raised by the defense. I believe he will, for two reasons. First, he is delaying the trial. Why? A normal person in prison, of course, will say, let's get on with it. I'm innocent. Let's get on with the trial so I can be released. Or many of our clients in prison are asking for speedy trial as a matter of right. But Duterte is the reverse. He's trying to delay a lot of motions. So I believe that because he knows once trial ensues, he will not be able to present. He has no evidence, actually, Attorney Karen, to present to show that he has nothing to do with the drug war and the EJK. So he knows once a trial ensues, it's more or less a foregone conclusion he will get convicted to a lengthy sentence. So is that an incentive to escape? Of course, yes. Especially if you consider the court without jurisdiction, this court kidnapped me, and this court is going to sentence me to, whatever, 10 years or 20 years imprisonment. I'll just probably flee, because anyway, there's nothing to lose. So for me, that's the very logical consideration here. And he is a person with means. He's wealthy. He has a lot of resources and supporters. So the appeals chamber considered all of those.
don't you believe that the Philippines would have a capacity to also try and prosecute this case if the government was able to use a lot of resources to bring FPRRD to The Hague? Then that shows that political will to, hold him accountable.
No, I don't think the justice system is hospitable to holding accountable human rights violators and perpetrators. It's been shown through history, from martial law under then President Marcos, and then, of course, until Duterte. So, ito nga, nagnakaw nga lang, Diyos ko, ng mga billion-billion na police funds. Who was really arrested there? Who was really, merong nahuling 3 senador, laya naman after nanalo pa.
That's why later we're gonna talk about yung
Yes.
ICI naman.
Okay.
Nakakalito na nga
Yeah.
ICC and then
Yeah,
ICI.
But the justice system here, as of now, we need a lot of justice system reforms. Look, the government, even if they want to charge President Duterte now, the evidence is really difficult now. Because many of the police during his time, even the victims cannot get a SOCO report. Can you imagine that? Presuming there's a SOCO report.
But do you think that ICC would have that evidence as well, considering
Yes.
they were not here during the time that...
I think, yes. I think the witnesses are more forthcoming there than here. And so I think they will have access to evidence plus the testimony of witnesses.
Well, there's a pending petition now in the Supreme Court that was filed by the Duterte children
Yes.
to have a petition for, it's for the writ of habeas corpus.
Yes.
So are you worried that this might also be a way to bring former President Duterte back?
No, in the first place, that's a very premature. A lot of cases have been dismissed by the Supreme Court for being premature. But in this case, not only premature, but also the Supreme Court has no jurisdiction over the ICC, in the sense that we signed an agreement, the entire government, including, of course, the Supreme Court, that yes, any person who commits a crime at the time that we are a member should be accountable to the ICC or here. Here didn't prosper. No cases were filed. How many thousands of drug war? At least 6,252. The government admits, but how many cases were filed?
But the basis for the petition of the writ of habeas corpus is on the legality of the arrest, in a sense that FPRRD was not brought before a court before he was sent to The Hague. So if it's that basis, and the jurisdiction here would be on the authority that conducted the arrest, then it's not a question of jurisdiction over the ICC.
That's the problem of President Duterte. If it's convenient for them, they use the Rome Statute. If it's not convenient, they say, we're no longer members, we're not part of that. Now they're using the Rome Statute. Under Article 89 of the Rome Statute, any person who will be surrendered must be presented to the judicial authorities. But that's for state parties, Attorney Karen. That's not for non-state parties. A non-state party
jurisdiction
is not bound by that rule, that you have to present it to a judicial authority. Because the state party will say, you requested me to arrest him. I arrested him. Now you're going to request me again to present him to... I mean, I give him to you, bahala na kayo dyan. Parang nag-request ka na nga sa aking hulihin utusan mo pa ako, i-present mo nga yan kung saan. No, the non-state party of which we are now, that's actually the fault of President Duterte. We're no longer bound by Article 89 that you need to present. But if you're a state party, you have to follow the Rome Statute, then you probably have to present.
But isn't it also
ground.
based on the residual jurisdiction that this was already a matter under consideration na kaya tayo
Yes.
nagdala din, pinadala dun sa FPRRD for trial. So I guess if we were to follow that line of reasoning, baka hindi pa moot itong petition for habeas corpus sa Supreme Court.
We'll see from the Supreme Court, but the fact that the reason of the Marcos, whatever the reason was, he could say that, I'm bound to cooperate with the ICC under Article 127. Or two, he could say, well, international justice asks that the victims, my constituents, the people are asking that he be... He could use any reason there. I don't see any justification on the part of government at that time, except to say, well, the Interpol has communicated with us. We're members of the Interpol. We're just going to follow the
And I think
Interpol.
that was the reason that they used. But would you objectively say that at the time that the administration cooperated and exerted efforts to bring FPRRD to The Hague was a political issue?
For me, the government cooperated. And I'm asking President Marcos, aminin mo na kasi in public.
Na political yung reason?
No, the reason is he cooperated with the ICC. Whatever his reason, but the fact is he cooperated with the ICC. He doesn't admit it. He says, the Interpol kasi. No. Now, his reason, maybe, I don't know, whatever his reasons were, it's for us, the counsels of the victim, the fact is we have been asking for the arrest of President Duterte for a long time.
So you don't care if it's political, basta it achieved the means, to bring FPRRD to the ICC.
Attorney Karen, for me, is there basis to say that he ordered the killing of thousands? Yes. If that's a yes, whatever your reason is, whether it's personal, political, or you're following international law, you arrested him and you just said Interpol. For me, that's enough. We go to ICC and he will stay there and the ICC will decide.
Well, now the current Solicitor General, Darlene Berberabe, told BNC's Agenda that her office can re-enter the case as counsel for the government officials in the petition filed by FPRRD and Senator Bato de la Rosa, as well as in the habeas corpus petition cases that are now pending in the Supreme Court. Do you think that the representation of the OSG would be an advantage to the government? But before you answer this question, we'll have to take a short break. At the Forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the Forefront, and we continue our conversation with Attorney Neri Colmenares, President of the National Union of People's Lawyers. Attorney Neri, just yesterday, Solicitor General Darlene Berberabe said to BNC's Agenda that her office will re-enter the case as counsel for government officials in the petition filed by FPRRD and Senator Bato de la Rosa, as well as in the habeas corpus petition cases that were filed by the Duterte children that are pending in the Supreme Court. So, what do you say about this development? Meron bang advantage to the government now that the OSG will represent them? Kasi dati nag-recuse si Solgen Guevara.
Well, I don't. That's the prerogative of the Solicitor General. We've filed cases against government, Duterte, Marcos, and it's always the Solgen who is the opposing counsel there. So I see no problem in the sense that it's the trabaho ng Solgen yan. So I just hope the Solgen does her best to argue in favor of not the government but the people who are seeking justice on the AJK drug war victims.
And let's shift now to a different I naman. Oh. So,
Yes.
just yesterday, they released already a statement as to the fact that they recommended charges to be filed against former Senator Bong Revilla, Maynard Ngu, the alleged bagman of Senator Chis Escudero, Carlo Aguilar, who is a cousin of Senator Mark Villar, Carlene Villa, staff of former Senator Nancy Binay, and 6 others. Are you satisfied with this development?
Well,
and how soon will we see a trial?
The filing of charges, it's good. It's a good thing if charges will file. Does it mean they will be convicted? May na-convict nga, nakalaya after a year or 2 or so. So, secondly, does that really resolve the issue of corruption? You see, everybody, Attorney Karen says that corruption is systemic. So, if corruption is systemic, then the solution must be systemic. The fact, in 2013, Napoles fund scam, 10 billion pesos, people were outraged. Then 3 senators were arrested, and we won a case in the Supreme Court that PDAF is unconstitutional, and everybody said, oh, everything's all right, so we stopped. But that's what the corrupt people are waiting for. Ay, pag humupa na yung outrage ng tao, babalik kami, mas marami. Di ba? Trillions na ngayon, 10 billion lang dati. So, if that's the case, systemic ang solusyon. The fact that the ICI, I don't even find the ICI credible, but anyway, the fact that they filed it, well and good, but we will not stop the protest unless you do systemic changes. Dapat walang secret bycam. Dapat yung budget process ay open and transparent and accountable. Dapat ipasa nyo muna ang anti-dynasty law. Dapat ipasa nyo muna ang pag-amyenda sa party list system para naman malinis na ang party list ng mga kontraktor at mayayaman. Dapat freedom of information law. Ipasa nyo yon. Hindi kami titigil sa pagprotesta at paglaban for reforms unless you do systemic changes. And that cannot be achieved by...
pinapaabot yung mga systemic changes na kinakailangan? At least yung anti-political dynasty may bill na ngayon.
Yes.
But for them to really pass this, sino yung tumutulak sa Congress?
Well, for me, it's addressed to the government itself. Ang Malacanang, of course, is the executive. But of course, the House too, because they're going to pass laws. The fact that somebody filed an anti-dynasty bill, Attorney Karen, I filed the anti-dynasty bill in 2013.
When you were still in Congress?
In Congress. And that was the first time ever that an anti-dynasty bill was tackled in a committee hearing. For years, hindi yan ni first base yan sa committee hearing, wala. It was tackled. And it was passed. So akala ko, oh my God, historic. It reached the plenary. And there were debates. And I had assurances from the leadership that they will support the anti-dynasty bill as long as we are not that strict. Kasi dati sa akin, isa lang eh. Pag may dalawa, bawal na yon. So, meaning to say, they were saying, why not 2? Can you allow 2? Ako, basta pumasa, pwede na. 2.
Na 2 members of the same,
Yes.
from the same family?
Yes.
Okay.
But in the end, it didn't pass. But so, ang point ko, the fact that somebody filed it, didn't even see committee hearing so far. So, yeah. So, systemic reforms, otherwise, we will go back to 2013.
Well, apart from this anti-political dynasty bill that needs to be passed, yung sinasabi mong systemic changes to fight corruption, ano pa yung kinakailangan natin? Kasi napansin ko rin with the charges that were recommended to be filed, apart from Senator Bong Revilla, it seems that the other personalities who will be facing charges are just the go-betweens of the senator. So, are you worried that we're facing the same situation na yung mga chiefs of staff, mga staff, and mga bagmen lang yung makukulong?
Yeah. You cannot blame me if ganun ang pag-iisip ko. Look, Napoles ang nakakulong. Si Gigi Reyes ang nakulong, etc. So sa akin, yes, okay, mag-file kayo ng charges, pero marami pa yan. Linisin yung mga accountability mechanisms. COA, Ombudsman, Sandigan Bayan, lahat yan, DBM, DPWH of course. Magluklok tayo ng mga opisyal sa gobyerno with integrity at ang gobyerno with integrity who truly represents the interests of the people. All these things are part ng systemic change other than prosecuting them. The first stage is always lahat ng sangkot dapat managot, but that doesn't end there. There is a systemic reform that must be undertaken, starting with cleansing all this accountability mechanism, and then you go for the institutional changes. And of course, in the very end, Attorney Karen, it is placing people with integrity in government and a government that truly represents the interests of the people.
Parang mahabang ano yan Hindi natin ata makikita yan soon, di ba? But wait, well, let me take a step back. You mentioned kanina that you don't find the ICI credible. Why is that?
Look, in the first place, the independence of the ICI for many is not really credible. No, they were appointed by Malacanang, and so far the way they acted, it's really like Are we not in a hurry here? So, and then they're not transparent. In fact, their rules and their guidelines is more protective of the one being investigated than public interest. They only agreed to live stream later on, but selective pa.
Oo, pagka nag-invoke ka ng executive session, then they won't allow live streaming.
Executive sessions does not an executive session make. The fact that you requested it granted, no. In fact, kahit na granted yan, pag the first few sentences mo sa executive session, parang wala namang anything executive about it, the ICI should now, let's go back to public. No, they don't have that in their regulation. So they're more protective of the one investigated than the people that wants them investigated.
Well, Rogelio Babe Singson has resigned from the ICI. Do you think this affects the credibility of the ICI further?
I think so. I would like to think so. I mean, bigla kang nagka-stress in the first place. Bakit ka na-stress? Is the investigation not to your liking? Or you think that the investigation is really not investigating? So, we don't know the reasons yet, but the fact that he resigned at a time when they're supposed to, make some reports or file charges, really for us, it is a blow to the credibility of the ICI further, because their credibility has been suffering for quite some time now.
Representative Terry Redon said PBBM should replace Singson with someone who has skill sets, someone who knows the ins and outs of the DPWH. Dati ganun si Sec Babes, at least from the members, no? Who could that be?
In the end, I have no person in mind, because whoever you place there, the ICI structure in itself, the independence is not assured. The powers are not assured. Walang ang contempt powers And so for me, medyo may kahirapan na yung ICI dito. So, kung gusto nila ituloy nyo yun. But there are other actions that must be done. Investigation ng Senado, ituloy nyo. Ang yung systemic reforms na binanggit ko, tuloy yun. Simultaneous yun Hindi pwedeng unahin mo yung isa kasi yan, ang aabutin tayo ng siyam-siyam, di ba? Simultaneously, let's do systemic reforms in corruption because it is systemic.
November 30 protest, pumunta po kayo sa Luneta.
Yes, I was there.
And there were groups that called for the resignation of both President Bongbong Marcos and Vice President Sara Duterte.
Yes.
Pero may mga iba naman, gusto nila si PBBM resign lang. So, magkakaiba yung mga calls and the others don't want any resignation. What are your thoughts on how to unify the stand against corruption para hindi na hati-hati yung hinihiling ng mga tao?
Actually, for me, they're unified na in the sense na lahat ng sangkot dapat managot. That's the basic, broadest basis of unity for all, whether you're in Luneta or EDSA or wherever you are in Bicol. So lahat yon. Ang iba, tingin nila ang mga managot goes up, like Duterte or like Marcos. It's the position of people wanting reform. Their ideas of reform may be different, but the basis of unity is lahat ng sangkot dapat managot. So para sa akin, let's keep our eyes on the ball para matuloy ito. And I don't think there's a difference masyado sa mga demands naman nila eh. So sa akin, if somebody to my right will say, oh, let's not mention anybody to resign. That's the position. Basta lahat ng sangkot, managot ha. Yes. Ikaw naman, you mention Marcos or Duterte or both. Eh, okay lang. Basta lahat ng sangkot, managot ha. Yes. O di, magkaisa na kami for that. And that's, I think, what's the most important call today. That everyone who nasangkot doon sa pagnakaw must be held accountable.
And do you think these protests are effective in
Yes.
convincing the government to do something?
I think so.
This time na managot lahat.
I think so. Kung malaki ang protest and outrage, that was done in 2013, right? In 2013, tinanggal talaga nila ang PDAF sa ano, di ba? Sa budget.
And it was declared unconstitutional
And it was
by the
declared
Supreme Court.
unconstitutional. You know what? Para sa akin, tatlong arena palagi ng laban. Ang una dyan, mga institutions like Korte, we're lawyers. So we file cases in court. We filed against the PhilHealth program appropriation, nag-oral arguments pa kami dyan. Kongreso din, kongresista naman kami. Lalaban kami doon, anti-dynasty bill. Institutional yan eh. But the third K, Korte, Kongreso, Kalsada, is also important. And you know what, Attorney Karen, most of our victories in our history were won through the streets. EDSA 1, EDSA 2, di ba?
And on that note, can we expect more rallies this December and next year?
Well, yes. December, alam mo naman tayo mga Pilipino.
Mahilig sa
Pasko na eh.
Christmas.
But January, February, March, April, May, yan. Stronger, bigger, larger, and more unified rallies in the offing. So that's what I really hope for. And 2026 will be a good year for the People's Protest Movement.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Neri Colmenares, and happy birthday again.
Salamat. Thank you, Attorney Karen.
Victims of former President Rodrigo Duterte's drug war inch closer to attaining justice, but the fight is far from over. And the Duterte camp is also not giving up just yet, as they face their legal battles both here and at The Hague. And as the ICI continues to issue their recommendations on investigations related to the flood control controversy, the public is waiting to see if there will be true accountability. Join us again tomorrow for conversations on issues that matter. I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno. Always stay at the forefront.